Hello aspirants, we all know yesterday UPSC 2025 mains exam has started. Today GS1 mains was conducted. In GS1 mains we have the history paper. So history questions you can see. These are the history questions. You have 6 questions. The 3 questions are for 10 marks and the remaining 3 questions are for 15 marks. So in the first 3 questions you can see, first main question, discuss the salient features of the Harappan architecture. It was given for 10 marks. So we all know Indus Valley civilization is an important theme for UPSC. So this time they have asked on the architecture of Harappa. And second question, examine the main aspects of Akbar's religious syncretism. Generally we ignore medieval period, but this year one of the popular topic, Mughals, has been picked up by the UPSC. So Akbar's religious syncretism has been asked. And look at the third question. The sculptors filled the Chandela art form with resilient vigor and breadth of life. Elucidate. So it is one of the non-explorated area. So this year UPSC has asked about the Chandela art forms. So we are going to see what these Chandela art forms are. And look at the 11th question. So this 11th question is from the socio-religious reform movements. Mahatma Jyotirao Phule's writings and efforts of social reforms touched issues of almost all subaltern classes discussed. Okay, and they have touched the socio-religious dimension of modern period. And look at the 12th question. Trace India's consolidation process during early phase of independence in terms of polity, economy, education and international relations. And it was given for 15 marks and this was from post-independent India. And 13th question is, the French Revolution has enduring relevance to the contemporary world. Explain. If you observe these 6 questions, UPSC has finely blended and balanced all the components of history, and they have touched ancient India, and they also gave 2 questions from the medieval period. You can see more weightage was given for the architecture. You can see the 2 questions, and they also focused on the modern period, particularly with respect to socio-religious reform movements. Surprisingly, there was no question on the India's freedom struggle. Okay, and look at the 12th question. For the last 2 years, I think they have not been asking any questions from the post-independent India, but this year we can see a question from this post-independent India. And 13th question, is from the world history, modern world historical developments. So I can say this year these 6 questions were spreaded across the breadth of Indian and modern world history. But if you look at these 6 questions, most of the questions are direct in nature. If you have the reasonable knowledge about the history, you can finally answer these questions. Okay, we will see how to answer these kind of questions. And look at the first question. The first question is, discuss the salient features of the Harappan architecture. So we start with the Indus Valley civilization. In Indus Valley civilization, we may focus more on the town planning, or else society, polity or religion. But this time they have highlighted about the Harappan architecture. What you have to write? So they asked about the salient features of Harappan architecture. So don't go and jump into write all the points what you know. So try to maintain the distinction. You have to emphasize only on the architecture. Architecture is nothing but buildings or are structures. Buildings or structures we can see in the IVC cities, Indus Valley cities. Okay, so we need to identify their salient features. So what kind of structures we can see in the Indus Valley? The first thing is all the cities and towns in IVC, they are all well planned. You can see the planned rectangular cities. And we all know this city was divided into upper town and lower town. So all the buildings in upper town, they are all built on a high raised platform. We can call it as inner citadel. So inner citadel, it comes under the comes under the main architecture. Now most of the buildings in upper town, they are all public houses. They are all public houses, and these houses are large, with at least 10 rooms. Okay, but whereas you can find the lower town where the houses are having the 2 or 3 rooms, that's it. So it indicates the inequalities. It indicates inequalities. Apart from this differentiation between the upper town and lower town, you need to highlight about Great Bath. You need to mention about Great Bath. Okay, Great Bath is a structure we can see in the center of Mohenjo-daro city. Okay, now this Great Bath, it was associated with certain rooms. So what we thought, this Great Bath might be used for the ritual or sacrificial baths. Okay, now in these Harappan structures, you can also mention about the great assembly or grand assembly. Grand assembly also we can see. Apart from this, granaries in Harappa, granaries at the outskirts of Harappa city. So these granaries indicates the storage facilities, food storage facilities. Okay, so with this we can conclude they have a strong centralized authority. And this strong centralized authority might create these storage facilities to distribute the food, or else it might be used for the export of food grains, okay, by boats. And we must talk about the granaries. And next one is, we can see the underground drainage systems. Okay, underground drainage systems. Apart from this, we can see the graveyards. So these are all comes under architecture or buildings. If you just mention about these structures, is not enough. You need to talk about the very nature of these structures. So he said discuss. So discuss means you have to bring all the viewpoints. If you look at the Great Bath, Great Assembly, granaries, they are all mostly utilitarian in nature. Most of the structures were used for the public purposes. And one more interesting thing is, whatever the structures you can see, that can be Great Bath, granaries, they are all built with the available building materials like burnt bricks or the baked bricks. So here they have not provided any artistic decorations. It was not decorated with any kind of sculptures. You don't find any aesthetic elements in these structures. They are all built with the available building materials. Okay, so this is what we have to identify. So you must talk about the structures, purpose of the structures, as well as the very nature of these structures or buildings. Okay, so that's enough for your Harappan architecture. Yeah. Next question is, examine the main aspects of Akbar's religious syncretism. Okay, so when you see this question, don't jump and write Akbar's religious policy. Okay, Akbar's religious policy generally we discuss in 3 phases. First phase, second phase and third phase. Here they mentioned about religious syncretism. First of all, try to know the meaning of syncretism. Syncretism means fusion of various beliefs. Syncretism means adaptation. Syncretism means cultural accommodation. So you must write about Akbar religious policy by touching these three aspects. Okay. So how do you start this question? We start this question by saying in 1560s Akbar ruled Delhi as a Mughal emperor. He followed liberal religious attitude, and his main religious policy was deeply influenced by his social ecosystem. Social ecosystem like his parents, particularly mother, friends, wives, and the very time period. He was born in 16th century AD. So 16th century means in India, Bhakti and Sufi movement was flourishing. So he was born in such a liberal religious climate in 16th century AD. So these things have influenced Akbar's religious policy. That's what you need to mention in the introduction. Okay. Then what are the main aspects? So your Akbar, in order to understand various belief systems in India, he constructed Ibadat Khana at Fatehpur Sikri. Okay. So at this Ibadat Khana, religious discussions were happened. Initially, Muslims were invited. Later, Hindus, Zoroastrians, Jains, and Christian representatives were allowed. So with these discussions, Akbar came to know about various faiths and their philosophies. Once he got the knowledge about all these philosophies, then he created his own order that is called as Din-i-Ilahi. Din-i-Ilahi. So Din-i-Ilahi, divine order that was created by the Akbar, it was amalgamation, a right blending of all the important elements, important principles of various faiths, like sun worship, Sunday is a holiday, okay, preferring only vegetarian food, following the noble principles like truth, honesty, integrity, okay, compassion, kindness, and you can also see the element of politics here. The followers of Din-i-Ilahi must surrender their dignity, life, property for the Sultan. So these are the important principles he mentioned. Not just only in Din-i-Ilahi, Akbar's religious syncretism is being reflected. You can see his state policies. He abolished jizya. He started celebrating Dasara, Deepavali, Holi, okay, as a state festivals in his palace. He also allowed the Rajput wives, okay, to bring their idol and practice idolatry in his own palace. He allowed Hindus to construct their temples. For instance, we have the Raja Mansingh. Raja Mansingh built many temples at Madura. So we have Christians and Jains were also allowed to build their places of worship. So you can see the cultural accommodation, and you can see the fusion of all beliefs in Din-i-Ilahi. And look at the Akbar's liberal attitude in his religious structures. You know, we have the palaces, fort complexes of Akbar at Fatehpur Sikri and Agra. There he built the palaces for Rajput wives according to their taste. You can see some Hindu elements in the Mughal structures. You know, the Hindus' favorite motifs like a lotus. You can also see the swastik in the structures of your Mughals. Apart from this, you know, we have the Panch Mahal. We have Panch Mahal at Fatehpur Sikri, and this Panch Mahal was built with 5 stories on the lines of Buddhist Vihara. Buddhist Vihara. So you can highlight the fusion of beliefs, adoption of various elements, at the same time cultural accommodation. Cultural accommodation is religious policy, and whatever the religious syncretism that was followed by Akbar, in conclusion you have to write this. So it provided a strong foundation for the Mughal Empire. So his footprints were followed by the Jahangir, Shah Jahan. With that, Mughal Empire has been consolidated. That's what you have to write for the Akbar's religious syncretism. Okay. Yeah. Look at this question. Most of the times we don't focus on the Chandela art, but here they highlighted about the Chandela art forms. The sculptors filled up the Chandela art form with resilient vigor and breadth of life. Elucidate. First of all, Chandelas are the Rajput rulers. They have ruled Bundelkhand and Baghelkhand region, that Vindhya Satpura ranges, in and around Vindhya Satpura ranges, almost for 2 centuries. Almost for 2 centuries. Among all the Chandela rulers, Vidyadhara and Dhanga, Vidyadhara and Danga, they are the most favorite rulers of these Chandelas. They have constructed many temples at Khajuraho. Khajuraho was their cultural center of Chandelas. At Khajuraho, they built around 85 temples. 85 temples. But all the 85 temples were not surviving here. So here only 25 temples were surviving. 25 temples were surviving. Here you need to mention about this brief information about the Chandelas. Okay. Then how these temples were built? These temples were built were in Nagara style. We all know above the Vindhya Satpura ranges, temples were built in Nagara style. Below the Krishna Tungabhadra river, these were built in Dravida style. Whereas at the Deccan, the same temples were built in Vesara style. So here, Chandala temples were built in Nagara style. Actually, Nagara style was started by the Guptans. When it comes to the Chandelas, Nagara style has reached its peak. You can see the gigantic, magnificent, towering temples. I have number of examples. Okay, temples like Lakshmana temple. Okay, temples like Gantai temple. Okay, temples like Vishwanatha temple. Okay, these are the gigantic temple. You can see the huge, lofty shikara, and this shikara indicates the Kailasa Parvata. Shikara indicates Kailasa Parvata. Here, the entire shikara, as well as exterior walls, interior walls, pillars, pillar brackets, everything was decorated with the sculptures. Okay, so this is how we have to focus. We have to focus mostly on the sculptures. Okay, so what kind of sculptures you can see in Chandela temples? In Chandela temples, the social, political, cultural, and economic life of the people was beautifully decorated in the form of sculptures. Particularly with respect to women, you can see they highlighted the feminine beauty. They celebrated fertility of women, and women was beautifully decorated. You can see the voluptuous structures. Okay. At the same time, they also see these structures. You can see them. Here, women were shown in decorating. You can see women were decorated with all the kinds of ornaments, lower garments, upper garments, as well as some ornaments. Okay, and here, see, here woman she was removing a thorn out of the feet. That was also beautifully seen. And most of the times women were shown in a twisted manner. Twisted manner. They highlighted the emotions of these sculptures. You can see the facial features also. Apart from this thing here, so whatever may be the structure, there they have highlighted the women's beauty. Apart from this, you can see the dances where in the society a dance music was prevailed. So along with this, most of the Chandala temples, they are filled with Mithuna sculptures. Mithuna sculptures are nothing but sculptures which indicates or which reflect physical intercourse between the men and women. You can see various sexual postures in these sculptures. What does it indicate? Here they have asked about the breadth of life. Breadth of life means the childbirth, child mean rearing, as well as mean the kind of culture they are following, finally how they die. So here the sex or physical postures, physical intercourse and their postures reflects the Naratra concept and how life begins and how life is going to end. They never hesitated to highlight these sculptures on the temples. Okay, so that's all about your Chandela art forms. When it comes to the Chandela art forms, here it is only sculptures. We have to emphasize more on the sculptures. Okay. Next one. Yeah, it is a question from the modern India. It was from socio-religious reform movements. Mahatma Jyotirao Phule's writings and efforts of social reforms touch issues of almost all subaltern classes discuss. Okay. Here we need to highlight contribution of Mahatma Jyotirao Phule through his writings, okay, and efforts of social reforms touch issues of subaltern classes. So here these are the clues for us. So Mahatma Jyotirao Phule's contribution through his writings and social reforms which touch the subaltern classes. Okay. So we all know Mahatma Jyotirao Phule. He was one of the foremost socio-religious reformer in Maharashtra. He was born in a Mali community and he was educated in Christian missionaries. Then he got that rational education. He started questioning all the citadels of caste system and all. So now, what are the subaltern classes? So we use the subaltern term in history. Subaltern classes means there are classes which were depressed and suppressed. So what are the classes which were depressed? One is women. And second one is Shudras. Shudra community. In Chaturvarna society, the fourth rank was given to the Shudras. And now below the Shudras we have Atishudras. Atishudras are the untouchables, we call them as Chandalas. Within the Shudras, whoever take up these menial professions, they were considered as the Atishudras. And his social reforms have also touched the concerns of peasants. If you look at the women, okay, your Mahatma Jyotirao Phule and his wife Savitribai Phule, and they have established girls' schools at Pune, and they are foremost in promoting education for the women, and they try to empower the women. And look at the Jyotirao Phule's writings. When it comes to the writings, his one of the phenomenal work was Gulam Giri. And this Gulam Giri, it highlighted caste discrimination as well as subordination of the lower caste like Shudras, and how social disabilities were imposed disabilities were imposed on Shudras. Means they were denied education, they were denied lands, they were denied all the property, they were not allowed to use the public places. Okay. Apart from this, we have the Atishudras. Though Mahatma Jyotirao Phule belonged to the backward caste called Shudras, he also highlighted the cause of Atishudras. He fought against the untouchability. He fought against the untouchability. Okay. So, and whatever the reform movement started by the Mahatma Jyotirao Phule, it was something like a facilitating ground for the later Gopala Baba Valgankar, who started Mahad movement, as well as the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar from Maharashtra. Okay. So, apart from this, he also expressed his concern about the peasants with respect to his organization Satya Sodak Samaj. Satya Sodak Samaj. Okay. In Satya Sodak Samaj, he highlighted the peasants' concerns, and peasants mean plight. In Maharashtra, what kind of settlement system we have? In Maharashtra, we have the Raitwari settlement system. So, in Raitwari settlement system, Mahajans, okay, as well as the company officials, they have exploited the peasants' rights, and he highlighted the cause of peasants. He tried to uplift the peasants. Okay. So, whatever the Jyotirao Phule's writings and efforts were there, they have not completely eradicated all the social disabilities of women. Here they asked about the discuss. When I say when it is a discuss, you have to present all the views. So, Mahatma Jyotirao Phule's ideas or his efforts of social reforms have not completely eradicated social disabilities, but it provided a ground for the later days social reforms. It facilitated the movement of other fighters. Okay. So, theoretically it questioned the very citadels of caste, Chautavarna system, okay, and patriarchal family systems, and he questioned exploitation. Okay. He criticized injustice. He fought for the fairness. He fought for the fairness. Okay. So, these are the things you have to highlight. In conclusion, you can also say Jyotirao Phule's social reforms have also inspired your justice movement in the south. Justice movement in the south. Okay. Next question. Next question is, trace India's consolidation process. Consolidation process during early phase of independence. Early phase of independence means it was around 1947 to 1967. In terms of polity, and economy, education, international relations. So, these are the keywords in this question. So, you have to write all these aspects in evolutionary manner. So here they asked about the consolidation. Consolidation happens after the independence. After independence. Okay. With respect to polity. What happened? So, when India got the independence in 1947, by the time there are 565 princely states. Okay. They were all under the British paramountcy. So, prior to get the independence, your Vallabhbhai Patel has used a carrot and stick policy. He convinced the princely states to join into Indian Union. By the efforts of Mountbatten, it was very much smoothened and facilitated without having any hassles. Around 560 states joined. Here and there we have some small problems at the Hyderabad, at Kashmir, at Junagadh. So, you must mention about the integration of princely states. Integration of princely states. Point number 1, it comes under polity. Not just only integration of princely states. Whatever the Indian Union we have, it need to be properly consolidated by providing the administration. And how, what is the basis for administration? It is your constitution. Drafting constitution, that itself is a great contribution. Drafting constitution. Okay, we all know India is a country of diversity, multiple cultures, different communities were there. Particularly, we have the vulnerable, isolated communities called tribals. How do you accommodate the tribals? And tribal Panchashil was provided. Tribal Panchashil was provided. So, in the tribal Panchashil, Jawaharlal Nehru, he clearly announced that tribals must be developed according to their genius. Minimum interference into the tribal life. By the support of the tribals, we have to ensure the governance. So, on the lines of these principles, we have Schedule 5 and Schedule 6 in our Indian Constitution. Okay. So, these are the important aspects with respect to the polity. Then what about economy? What kind of economic steps we have taken? When we got the independence, we have a dilemma whether to follow capitalism or the communism. We all know in capitalism there is an exploitation of labor by the capitalist class. When it comes to the communism, in communism all the proletariat class, they have to start a revolution against the bourgeois class. There was a class struggle in communism. In communism, liberty of the people was completely ignored. When it comes to the capitalism, exploitation was there. Then what kind of economic philosophy or economic systems we have to follow? So, India adapted Madhya Marga. So, India followed mixed economy. Majority of the economic areas were taken over by the public sectors. So, you can see the emergence of public sector companies. You see, we have inspired from the Russia. We started planning process. First fire plan, second fire plan, third fire plan. So, central government has taken the responsibility and it started allocating the resources and orchestrated the very development in India. So, that's what you need to talk about economy. Apart from this, so we have in a situation that ship to mouth situation. So, there was a food crisis. To overcome this food crisis, we have started green revolution. So, the steps for the green revolution was started in 1960s. Okay, gradually you can see the green revolution. So, that is with respect to economy and creation of public sector undertakings. Then education. When it comes to the education, India emphasized more on the secular, scientific, rational education. So, we have emphasized more on technical education as well as the universal mass education. Okay. Then international relations. So, with respect to the initial years of independence or post-independent period, you can see a strong foundation was provided for the international relations. Okay. So, India's foreign policy was created. It was based on the Panchashil with respect to the China, and we have created NAM, non-aligned movement. So, with the non-aligned movement, we maintained equidistance between the USSR, which was the leader of communist bloc, and USA, and it was leader of capitalist bloc. So, it tried to prevent all the third world countries in Asia as well as Africa not to join in these two blocks. Okay. NAM is one of the important contribution of India. So, it provided basic framework. And one more point you need to highlight. Initial days, our foreign policy emphasized more on idealism rather than pragmatism. Okay. So, whatever the foundations formed in the initial days, and that has guided the later days policies. Okay. So, that's all about your or 12th question with respect to the post-independent India. Okay, next 13th question. The French Revolution has enduring relevance. French Revolution has enduring relevance to the contemporary world. To the contemporary world. Explain. Here you have three words. French Revolution, its relevance to the contemporary world. So first of all, in detection, you need to mention about what is French Revolution. French Revolution started in 1789 against monarchy, as well as church and nobility by the masses. Masses were proletariat class. Proletariat class, nothing but the peasants as well as labor. They were guided by the bourgeois. Who are bourgeois? Bourgeois are the middle class. You can call them as the intellectual class. Okay. So now this mass revolution, it has toppled down the very monarchy. So French Revolution, which was started in 1789, it has its vibrations, its repercussions in the entire Europe. It has completely shaken the European world. And whatever the ideals created by the French Revolution, over a period of time, they have influenced the world. And what kind of influence right now it has on the contemporary world? When it comes to the French Revolution, we must talk about its revolution against the medieval ideas and institutions. What is that medieval institution? Medieval institution is church. Church is nothing but religion. Whatever may be the religion, whatever may be the country, you can see most of the times, and religion is trying to interfere, religion is trying to influence state policies. But religion should not influence the state policies. You have to maintain the distance. You must separate the religion from state policies. Nothing but secular state. So secular state is the need of ours. Okay. So that is the relevance of your French Revolution. At the same time, your French Revolution fought against the feudal order. What is feudal order? Feudal order is purely based on the identities. Where you are born. If you are born in the aristocratic family, you will get the positions in the higher administration. So it's not the merit is the basis, but your French Revolution emphasized more on the merit. So feudal order was replaced by merit-based order. You know, we are writing UPSC. UPSC is going to select the people on the basis of what? Merit. You can take any country, and most of the countries, they form their administration, they are recruiting functionaries, they are recruiting officials on the basis of merit. So merit-based order is still relevant for the modern world or contemporary world. Apart from this, your French Revolution highlighted the three jewels. What are they? Liberty, equality, and fraternity. Liberty, equality, fraternity. So liberty means the freedom of people. So freedoms like freedom of speech, freedom of expression, religious freedom, they are very much necessary for the people in a state. So it highlights the liberty. Next, second one is equality. You may have many communities, many cultures in a country. You may have diversity, but all the people, whether majority or minority, you must extend the equality. Point number one. Point number two, across the world, we have the families. The most of the families are patriarchal in nature. Their women were subjugated. So it highlighted the rights of women, rights of transgenders. So it highlighted equality among the humans. It also worked for the fraternity. So fraternity is required. Why? You know, across the world we are facing various challenges like terrorism, like climate change, disasters. So the world has to overcome all these challenges by having the fraternity. So already they said about the free trade, that free trade must give the fruits to all. So these are the ideals that was very much relevant to the contemporary world. Apart from this, your French Revolution also highlighted principle of self-determination. Principle of self-determination. People are the sovereigns. If people decide, people have every right to decide their destiny, their future. If people wanted a separate state for them, that must be respected by the state. Okay. So this principle of self-determination, it breeded the ideology of nation states as well as nationalism, okay. So nation state, nationalism are still relevant for the contemporary world. You can quote the example of Gaza. So the people of Palestine and Gaza, they are fighting for their identity. So apart from all these things, your French Revolution emphasized more on rule-based order. And one more cornerstone principle of this French Revolution inspired the people to fight against exploitation. Wherever may be that injustice, wherever there is an exploitation, that exploitation must be opposed. Okay, that spirit was given by the French Revolution. So you need to highlight all the values, principles which are very much relevant. You can quote the contemporary examples. So here you don't need to write about how French Revolution was happened. We must present our answer according to the demand of question. Here they asked how French Revolution has relevant for the contemporary world. So you need to highlight these values. Okay. So I hope this discussion will be helpful for your preparation. So thank you so much.